동계 채널 가지다 저번 얘기하는 좀 가진 거야서 니지랑 저 시대가 돼야 그 니바 테마들라 계속 가가리 쌈도 들리지 땅이 시비를 그래서.
And I think Tulku also asked me to teach this scriptures because of all this background, because of all these reasons. And I myself also think this why this kind of scripture is so necessary for this kind of environment. And regardless whether its fruition appears or not, that whatever I can provide all these informations, I will definitely do it.
그래서 소소를 싸면 되지나 아니 동본이 소소는 거중에 제가 개념으로 왔어.
And therefore, that since I have this kind of intention or aspirations, so it is also very important that it should be start implementing from oneself. So either I can implement myself, or I can share all these instructions to others, and whatsoever, rather than waiting someone will going to implement it, someone will going to understanding it, that rather than waiting for it, that one should start from ourselves, that once that we need to do our own part to just understand all this and implement it. So since now we are going to complete this study within these 4 sessions from now on until Sunday, we will going to finish this. But even though it is completing the teaching or finishing this teaching, but still it is so much worth that one should continuously contemplate on it, read these instructions, and then implement it as much as one can, and according to one's capability, that one must try to put into practical. And then also, if possible, then share with your family members and friends and so on to the others, that oh, there are such a good advice and guideline, that kind of teachings which is very much relevant with our life style, and that kind of informations you may need to share with your friends and families and relatives, and tell them to encourage them to pay attention towards this kind of scriptures or guideline. And also that the reading this scripture, the textbook, again and again, and then especially that whatever some sort of like a special stanza, you may find it is very much relevant and suitable for oneself, and you may try to memorize that specific stanza, and then by memorizing it, then morning when we wake up, at that time try to read this out of memorized, and then try to contemplate on its meaning. And likewise, and when we are traveling on the way when we are free, and then we just try to memorize those words and contemplate on those meanings. And then likewise also when we go to the sleep, also we can do those. So without just after finishing this teaching, without just leaving behind, you may utilize this and you may memorize some of those the stanzas whichever suitable or penetrating to oneself. When we do in this way, and then that really affects, that really change our way of life, that really change our attitude and behave. And also when we have that kind of understanding always within oneself, memorize those meaning, and then when sometimes encounter with such conditions letting us or forcing us to do something nonsense, that immediately one can stop oneself by contemplating and reminding those meanings. And that's really helpful to kind of like reading again and again. And if I describe simply the meaning of meditation, and this is it, the meditation, contemplating upon those meaning is the meditation. And also that Holiness Dalai Lama, he expressed that when he wake up morning, he's kind of like contemplating, and whatever he have memorized, those the special stanza from the Bodhicharya Avatara and from the Chandrakirti text, this what do you call that? Madhyamika texts, and then also as well as Nagarjuna composed this Madhyamika, the root of Madhyamika. Some of those important important paragraph which talks about the selflessness and compassion, loving kindness, and these kind of things. He just reading himself out of his memory and then contemplating on its meaning, and that's what he said he's doing it, and this is it, the meditation. And then now the this scripture, the textbook, it has this main three themes. The first one is paying homage, and second one is the actual scripture or actual teaching, and then the third one is conclusion. So we are here in the second, the actual teaching. And in this actual teaching, that how one can be a kind person or integrity, it's that based on using this tree, which has these 6 characteristics, and among these 6 characteristics of tree, that we are here in the fourth one.
아니 담비 사교단 망가 이때 밀루던 팀이 통 초와 양다바지 제니 피송 초발라 아니 당체들이 주 뭔세 미래 체나 용이다 뭐든 기억을 하시는 대단 잘 기억을 했어.
And it is describing this how that the complete tree has to has these qualities such as a kind of like a root, trunk, branches, leaves, flower, and fruit. So in order to have a complete tree, and these are the 6 characteristics are required. The tree whichever have these 6 characteristics, it's considering as a perfect and complete tree. And likewise, this is an example. Likewise, the meaning, and in order to kind of like have a the perfect, in order to become a perfect person or the good person, and the also it requires and this kind of like a characteristic such as similar like this, how to have a perfect and complete tree. And likewise the be human in order to how to say become a good and perfect person, which is surviving or living lifestyle accordance to the humanism and accordance to the spiritual, not kind of like the opposing or contradict without contradiction and without opposing each other, and how one can survive in a middle way with a balance. And in order to live lifestyle in a balance in the middle way, that what it is required, it's those the 12 characteristics, which is similar like this, each of those 6 character divided two characteristics, so which requires those 12 characteristics. The person whoever possess these 12 characteristics, it's considering as a perfect and good human.
단체 이바 되나 신동기나 네 고피송 초발라 로마데 개념이 나이.
And then this fourth category, that the one characteristic which required in order to complete tree is the leaves.
아니 되게 대한 게 나야. 제가 해와가 팬도가 아니 이티에버스.
And likewise, and to become a complete, perfect, and good human, and likewise, here what characteristics are required is the what you call recognizing the others' kind, and recognizing the others' kind, and the striving to benefit others. And these 2 characteristics, it's like the leaf that in order to complete the tree, it requires leaf. Likewise, in order to complete a good human beings, and these 2 qualities are also required. And among these 2 qualities, the first one is the recognizing the others' kind.
제가 해봤을 때는 공부 뭐게 노르디 빌고는 맞는 것들이 제가 해서는 간리지리스.
And then the first this stanza, it's introducing the essence or the entity of what does it mean recognizing the other's kind. And that essence of this recognizing others' kind, it's described by this stanza, which is in page 20. Everybody in page 20, the second stanza. We begin from this second stanza of page 20 of this textbook. So it is mentioning, think to yourself, this one has benefited me in this and that way, recognizing that others have been kind to you and repay their kindness. And this is the doorway into the conduct of integrity. Or I think sometimes maybe we can say this, this is the doorway indicates the noble.
다들 가는 생각이었으나 근데는 다라 생각해서 공사 다 니인데 단대시 자와 그 소위 마이나 파이 마이나 마이 마이나 소소니 양바이나 리비시니 양바이나 그거 정말 마이나 수도 소위 마이나 민대시 자와 대 다라 다 소소라 아니 뒤값 니들 강한 체디 소소를 들이 그 맛이 봐다 가리나야 들이기다 집내 좀 가리 제 채나 가르쳐만 있는 값 대디나 아니 펜도 제는 소소 강한들 파 잡아지는 사람이다 아니 고지 강한테다 잡아지는 그 아니 펜다운이 이상 소소 니고 세모니 고 예나 가서다 고 모소 때 맞다면 그톤이 해봐다 아니 좀 많이 봐 소소 그 센티네 내들이 잡아대 근데 제가 힘었어요 그래서
And think to yourself, this one has benefited me. This, what does it mean here? This could refers to anybody, including your parents, father, mother, or your teacher, or friends, relatives, anybody, such a other, any kind of those persons that how to say, understanding or recognizing that when one have a certain difficulties or certain problem, and then any of those persons did kind to solve those difficulties or solve those problems to oneself, and not just being talkative or being saying from the just from the mouth, but also from the deep inside our mind, that really appreciating and having that sense that such and such person did that kind of kind and solve my problem and the dispelled my difficulties and obstacles for me, and having a very sense from the deep of our mind, bottom of our heart, and that is considered, that's called the recognizing other have the other's kindness.
That the 힘이 돈이 긴저와 세대가서 아니 소소게 대 선팅의 tempa 좀 마야와체 근데 소소란 니바다 아니 고 진jan탕 그래 봐이나야 고 깨자야 보지만도 시 마토나야 딜라네 아니 고지 제야 카피다야 돼 아니 긴저와 세라고
And then repay their kindness. And what does this mean, repay their kindness? And after having that kind of sense from our bottom of heart, but not just living on it, but further, and accordance to one's capabilities, one's what do you call a power, that whatever, whichever way or whatever one can do something back to that person's, and the kind of like a really kind of like a willing to do, even that one cannot do anything rather than just speaking very nicely, but still doing that to those type of person, somehow that doing whatever one can, doing one's best to do something back to those type of persons is considering as the kind of like a repay their kindness.
되게 하고 이제 돈이 파네 국제자 아버지한테 시마트 바이나야 대 지야대 여러 시바 그 천재라고
And based on this sense and understanding the other's kind, and then trying one's best to repay their kind, and even one cannot do anything other than just talking nice to them, but is still doing it that. And that kind of behave, it's really indicates the kind of like a noble persons. That kind of behave is indicates the good person. What does it mean, indicating? So that means it is showing the sign based on the person's behave, whether that person has a good characteristics or not, and this behave will going to be become the sign for that other person's whether he is good persons or not. And the next stanza, what it is talking about is this kind of like the benefit from others. It is also difficult to recognize. So how they translate it is, without recognizing when others have helped you, helped and harmed you. Actually, harmed also should be there. It is talking about both help and harm. And you will not think about reciprocating. Only the bodhisattvas would ever consider trying to do anything beneficial or for someone like this. I think this one, if I added some word in between, let me read again. Without recognizing when others have helped and harmed you, and also not thinking about reciprocating to that. Therefore, accept then bodhisattvas who will try to do anything beneficial for someone like this. And I think, I don't know whether my understanding lacking or not, but this I feel a little bit not really giving its meaning. So without recognizing when others have helped and harmed to you, which means that whether one's relative, teacher, or whosoever, whether one's foe and disliked person, whosoever harmed and helped, the first, if one failed or unable to recognize their deed, and without recognizing the other's deed to oneself, and there's an impossible that the paying their kind back or reciprocating to that.
파나 마도 반델 팬도 소리. 파바도 파피야 바레스. 내가 말하는 인디카서. 파바도 저러고 이나? 근데 그 연단세부터 가서 연 단가 제군도 가서 소소소는 하마 팬바지 제여다 제매 진창고 인가 미나 그대로 말했어. 그 내가 남이는 미래를 통해 그 연의 팬다고 그랬어.
And then
맞아 시당 이대 매직 some 내당 통해 그대로나 동부 소소의 제발 마시발라 한 데서한테 가보자고.
so therefore, and Mibon Rinpoche said this, except then bodhisattvas, which means those bodhisattvas, and they doesn't really expect anything from others, and regardless of whatever other have been done to them, they will just do benefit whatever way they can do it, other than those. And then he excluding those bodhisattvas, the Mibon Rinpoche, and kind of like exceptional than those bodhisattvas, and then normal people like us, that whoever kind of like the mundane, we having the concept accordance to the mundane, and if how to say, they don't recognize or failed to understand the other's deed, and there's no way that willing to reciprocating back.
아니 그 이때 밀루고도 제네다 전주 삼바 파바도 팍비비게 이때 밀루고 삼바 방방도 이때 밀루고도 제바이나 아니 자나다 녜나 세아데 니여베바데 고 로탄치 타고레스.
And except those bodhisattvas, excluding those bodhisattvas, and other than that, according to humanism and according to mundane point of view, and whatever other did, whether it is supporting or whether it is harming, and according to the other's deed, one has to be reciprocate or kind of like a do back in the same way, and that kind of things is considering as a humanism.
어떻게 가서 딱 팬란다 너는 제발 동부 소소라 수 제야 돼 하고 뭐야 돼 내가 좀 그랬어.
And in order to reciprocating accordance with their support and their harm, first one must recognize their support and their harm.
그러니까서라 아니 그다 팬발라 팬렌트발라 동부 소소 좀 무엇이 그거를 뒤지니까서라 아니 디키 공에 무엇이 받대 제발 해받대 개체 뭐 받대 다 뒤지 그랬어.
So in order to reciprocating according to their deed, and it is so important to recognize the other's deed, and this is something it is talking about, that one must recognize what other deeds to oneself.
근데 아니 제발 해봐 맨나 아니 팬한다 너는 용구야 말했어. 근데 고도로 그랬어. 근데 그 팬당이나 파팬마다 왔지. 순녀쟁이나 판너봐 너는 말고 왔어 말해. 그 간지 팬당들이 파녀진 거였어. 순녀쟁이들 팬당으로 써라고. 아니 고도로 그랬어. 이집이 가서 민마까지 기었으나 팬당 너는 고도캔 미를 빠진 데인가 대라 시험 때 받기 따왔다야 수인들. 팬란다 내가 고마도와 제발라 아니 소소라 그래 동부 제발 해 그거였어. 근데 그 제발된 마시 소만 있는 장가리였으나 팬란다는 다른 로우 말이었어.
And then this next stanza, what it is talking about is that without recognizing the other's support and harm or others' help and disturbance, and it is impossible to reciprocating accordance to their deed. And what it will going to be the fall that if we don't recognize the other's deed to oneself, either it is good or bad, either it is help or harmed. And then the someone who give back harm in return for receiving benefit, even if they are labeled a human, is in fact a demon. So why try to conform your conduct to theirs? Who even wants to look at such a person?
근데 제가 때 마시스나 페네드 고도로 그래. 페네드 고동기 밑에 가느라고 찾았으나 파타딜레 메다고 통 미레스는 라바이나야. 근데 대나 내다고 찾아야 돼.
So which means the persons who are failed or unable to reciprocating accordance to the other's deed, and even though they looks like a human, but lacking of that capability really means it is equal, or it is just like a demon.
근데 파타디 메다고 통 미레스는 라바이나야. 대나 줄에 데라 딜레 시험 띵세게 가서 코다니 내가서 코다니 냠들 사 냠들 통 냠들 로체니 코다 시험 틈바 지야다 파 코다니 kon 내가서야 파다샤 이게 따와자야 수직 진행되는 말이에요.
And then next, what it is talking about, that type of persons who doesn't know how to reciprocating accordance to others' deed, and even though it looks like a human, but actually it is none other than just demon. So such a person like demon, and then it is forget it. It is kind of like a why try to comply or conform your conduct to theirs? So which means actually going with them and complying to them, compromising to them, and then eating together, or working together, it's far. Even who wants to look at that kind of persons?
디지털 단다 쇼로베니 단다 동사로 쇼로베니 단다 도도도 가르치는 거였으나 아니 제바 마시비게 짠게 된 거였어 예바도 된 거였어.
And therefore this just two stanza above one, and this two stanza, the main point from this two stanza is showing that lacking of recognizing the other's deed, lacking of recognizing the other's deed and its fault.
가르쳐 이거였으나 제바데 마시나 아니 페네드 내내데 또 히 말에 페네드 내내 도 마시나 제 마시나 아니 밑 파타디 메다고 토나이나 아니 데 다나 데라고 차대요. 데 제디 가서 아니 데라 미땅 장에 연구 말에 세 간다 된 거였어.
So in short, that person who is lacking or fail to recognize the other's deed, and that person will not going to able to reciprocating accordance to others' deed. And when the person fails to reciprocating to others' deed, and even though it looks like a human, but that's not really, in fact it is equal to demon. So people like a demon, and the fault of it is who will going to compromise with him, who will like to comply to them. And that complying and compromising is far, even who will like to look at him. That's showing the fault of it. And then now from this, and then the next stanza, what it is talking about is the benefit or the what you call the benefit of knowing the others kind and reciprocating according straight.
So drink chamber and so this, Jeba Amazine, and it lets you king chambers of this. The naked and Jeba Jeba Chunjuma to Menaya, and the Jeba de She. She was on the Mazin, the Delan, diligent shit to trading it in Maina. And the Dilla and the Nicky intended them by Tilla Tayan Yen. 이된 밀루다 담밀 하죠던 팀이기다 고 변소 빠르다 네 slate도 여바의 시방 그만하고 그래서 여바의 연자 보스.
And for a sublime holy beings, even a small act is reciprocated greatly. If one has this kind of noble quality, it means he has other great qualities as well. So what does it mean? That those sublime beings, even if one support in a very small, that in it very kind of like a minor support, and to pay their kind back and to reciprocate to that, they will going to reciprocate it greatly back to their kind. And then there's such a person who have that kind of qualities, and that person who possessing this kind of characteristics, and those person will going to possess the other, all the characteristics are also kind of like the what you call the has other great qualities as well, yes, such as those talking about the above qualities, like sensible, trustworthy, modesty, and conscientiousness, honesty, and keeping commitment firmly, that rest of the other qualities that whatever we mentioned so far.
제바의 시비기 그바스는 찌바라고 했다. 그바다 땡 거. 아기 제바 미조가 델라로된 순두가 찾아 봐요. 공부 연탄견자 제대로 예를 가서. 딱그 단생 간대에 개마해야 되는도 왔다. 뒤 남아있나요? 제바 시신 빈조와 매바이나 공도 시야비 불로대마다 순두바다 찾아 봐야 돼. 담보소 공개 체제 안에 그 제일나 좀 파트나 주대조야 하와진 강라여야 돼.
And then whoever does not reciprocate the kindness of others lacks good sense. How could such a person ever have stability, conscientiousness, carefulness, modesty, integrity, honesty, or any other positive qualities? So, which this stanza showing that the faults or the lacking of this kind of like what you call the recognizing the others kind and reciprocating accordance with it. So that whoever does not kind of like able to reciprocate the other's kindness and lacking that good sense, and such those type of persons, how could such a persons ever have those rest of other qualities mentioned above, that those either we call 3 or the 6. If we condense, it becomes 3. If we elaborate, it becomes 6. Those stability, some kind of like a sensible or the wise, and then kind temperament or trustworthy, and the modesty, conscientiousness, and honesty, and keeping commitment firm. So these are the 6 qualities, or any other positive qualities. So this is kind of like a saying that a person who is lacking this, and they will going to lack rest of other qualities. And that shows the importance of recognizing the other's deed and reciprocating or paying their kind back. And that person, whoever lacking this kind of character or this kind of capabilities, and for sure that rest of the other qualities will not going to be endowed. A person who recognizes that what others have done for him and who reciprocates is known as one in whom the glorious protectors abide. From this good quality, other good qualities ensue. So such a person becomes beautiful. So what this is really talking about is, now it is talking from the point of view of the having the recognizing that characteristic which we talk about, the recognizing others, uh, the kind and paying their kind back, that kind of characteristics. The person who ever have that characteristics, and that characteristics alone also indicates the such as all the above called characteristic mentioned. Um, and then that such a person becomes beautiful means it makes the person the kind person. And then this next, from this good quality, others good the indicates the others good qualities, or we need to say indicates here, or other good qualities ensue, or so such a person becomes beautiful. This is some sort of like a summarizing and the benefit of having that characteristic. Persons who have such this quality, that recognizing others kind and paying their repay their kindness back, and that one quality or characteristics and indicates or symbolizing that person has many of others above mentioned qualities.
어떻게 봐줄래? 아니 그 제바시 아니 텔레 진소 되는 미 맞지 맞아 하 밑에 되지 하거든요. 근데 밑에라 텔레 예비게 연데 아니 맞아게 로다 템바다 손도바다 트레여바다 바여바 아니 정보다 템보다 사마데 근데 여방 한 받지나요. 지대가지. 오케이 되시게
And this is what main talking about is that person whoever has this characteristic that also that other person can understand indirectly or automatically the rest of the other sensible, trustworthy, modesty and conscientiously, honesty and keeping commitment firmly, all those other characteristics also possessed by this persons can be understand indirectly or automatically.
배당아서 다른 뭐 이제 도와줘 통화이나 디라 매여바 하고 들어와.
For instance, when we look into so far, if we see the smoke in somewhere, the location, then based on that sign, we can indicate it indicates or we can understand there's a fire. Therefore, likewise, the person who have this kind of quality, recognizing the other's kind and repay their kindness, and that type of persons, we can predict or we can understand that person has rest of the other qualities as well.
체제 속에 이만이 담보되게 간다 도도들한 때였으나 네 메텔라 제바시히 진성 이마치 아니 고 개체모이 맞다 뜻이거든요.
So mainly from this, what it is talking about is the importantness of having this quality, recognizing others' kind and repay their kind, which is like a leaves. In order to complete a tree, a leaf is requiring. Likewise, that the leaf like this quality, and there's a two characteristic or two qualities, and this is the one of them. So we may stop here if you have some questions. So if you have questions, you can unmute yourself and you can speak up. So no question. Does anybody have question?
그래서 말해. 만도는 미쳐서 말해. 지금 아직도 저는 맞을 거예요.
So if you don't have question, then we may go a little bit far, a little bit further.
근데 단전이 맞다.
And then now the second characteristic.
나 단전이 맞더라. 아니 얘는 한번 더 봐도 얘는 한번 더 봤더라. 아니 동보 때나 얘는 한번 얘편 두발라 쯤바이나 아니 왕 단단히 누출 이게 뭐야.
So this first stanza of this 21 page, the 21 page first stanza, it is talking about this striving to benefit others. So this stanza that the mainly is talking about the when we try to benefit others and the what do you call wishing of wish of self, or the self, kind of like a, how to say, the wishing of self will going to fulfill by automatically. That's what it is talking about.
얘는 한번 쯤바 때 롱이 비송 소비죠. 바탕 저바 자체가 늘 중심이.
So striving to benefit others is the cost of an abundance of perfection in oneself. Glory and great fortune are born from this, and it is this that summons them forth.
얘는 팬타야 매전 제가 대 가르에서는 론이라 라다 팔라스파타 진두이지 주조데 타고 그랬어요.
And the striving to benefit others, or putting effort to work for others or help others, is the cause and conditions to gather or collect all the glories and divinities and fortune and so on.
근데 그 얘는 팬타데기 얘는 팬바트데기 얘는 팬타야라 매전 제대로 밑에라 빨량 콜라 라 랑이메다 토미모레라 조바 자참보야 랑이메다 차이모레 이치디 가솔라 매 얘는 제가 안 될래 네고 내가 감기
So that persons who having the altruistic or altruism, and person who put great effort to help others and support others, and those persons can gather all this glory and wealth and fortune automatically.
당연히 다른 게 가서도 쇼로가 니게 때문에 아니지 그 칼리 이미 그 생대기 소소의 팔레 동점이 얘기 단다데 급대라이나 근데 롱그 단다 참마데 라이 슈라 네 그도고에서 차디 여인 말했어 이마이나야 나랑서도 고 토마메 바는 나 생에데 짜참도지 제니 그 공부디 디 영어도 뭐지 아니 동보데 나리마도 옌데 라마토야 아니 차대 거겠어.
So the fact, actually, the accordance to this stanza meaning, that if genuinely or authentically, if anyone able to perform or able to follow this guideline, then yes, definitely that we can achieve all those fruitions, whatever described. But yet, on the other hand, unfortunately, from the beginningless lifetime, we have built this strong habit of self or I being putting so important and primarily all the time. So therefore, we are unable to implement such this instructions somehow. We are having so difficult to put this into practical.
다들 하den도 무조건 따로 먹어라. 삼나당당 먹어라. 아주 토미니 얘기하기 나 전부 때라 맨하고도 빠지네. 나 당보인 밖에 없어 먹지. 여러분이 시행도
And then especially here in these Western countries and Westerners, and from the base that we already have this strong self, and top of that, and also igniting the flame to blaze further more this importantness of self. And then all the education, academic systems and education systems teach to make it strong, this self or I.
당연히 가서 중시해야 하는 일이 나서 삼나당당 제발이나 되게 소수기 빨단 줘봐 가리네 루비아라 자 첨보지 용어야라 바지다 개 용어나 보지 소리를 했어.
So this is similar, like as I told earlier, this history. So what we consider putting self as a priority and important is the actually obstacles to achieve all those glory and fortune and wealth.
근데 이게 제가 있나 아니 고자 첨보다 대 첨보집도 소소를 누구 봐 있나 아니 말레장 예 자체와다 개체와지 제투나 문제와지 잘 모르겠어.
In fact, if one really wants to accomplish one's wishes, and this is the very good skills, always concerned about others and support and benefit others.
장주 생각도 좀 참아대 이 얘기 된다더라 그러니 소소 사람도 왔다 이지
For instance, look at those bodhisattvas and that how they achieve all those high realizations and high bhumi stages and further improvement. They all achieve all those high realizations, high bhumi stage and improvements and everything. It is by engaging into supporting others and concerning well-beings of others, and that is the reason that they are able to achieve those fruition. And always this Holiness Dalai Lama emphasized that the very wise way of fulfilling the self-interest are actually those bodhisattvas. But yet this is challenge, this is difficult, yes. And in order to able to make it oneself to put others first, what we need to have before that, what we need to have a sense is that equalness of self and others. And based on having this capability of sense of having equalness, self and others, then further one can improve or develop our mind to the putting other as a more important. For instance, if we are lining up somewhere in the store or whatsoever in a queue, that it is so difficult for us to let some others go off front of oneself. that when we are staying in the queue, that when some stranger come abruptly and then stay in the front, that we immediately feel very kind of like the strange. And likewise, that when we are fail to think about others like this kind of small things, then it is way more difficult that when it able to think about others first when it related with the greatest or bigger issue. And then so far until now, that we always cherishing after self-interest, such as a cherishing after fame, cherishing after wealth, cherishing after positions, cherishing after repetitions, and so forth, that now look at oneself, what we really achieved it by cherishing after those. And the why that we are unable or fail to accomplish or achieve all these divinities and glories and wealth, reputation, and so on. It is all because of it is the we are preventing all of them by having this self-centered attitude very strongly. That when we have this self-centered attitude or the selfishness, self-attachment, when we have very strong, that prevents, that closing the doors to gather all those glories and divinities and reputation and so on. So therefore, that one must try one best to have this kind of sense, the first putting others as more important. And but yet that kind of, in order to have that kind of sense within oneself, and one must study and one must try to contemplate on it, and one must try to implement this kind of training, mind training again and again. And it cannot be arise, or it cannot be have within oneself like within short period, week or month. It is impossible. That it may takes time, but however, we should train our mind. If it is that easy, that until now everybody should become already bodhisattvas, because there's nobody that who doesn't wish themselves to accomplish something better. And in general, that what we have right now, all those kind of like technicians, all those materials right now, what we have, imagine that if we talk all these things about before 1000 years, if we talk all this at that time, and that there is such and such this kind of things possible, then this kind of talk people may not getting into their ear.
그나게 나도 단다 랑의 yen 개체와 som당고리 근데 라비아테 니 소소게 냠뇽게 토니 로를 코야데 카보레.
So likewise, in the same way that right now that being able to accept that one should put others as a priority or others as a first, and that kind of informations, it is so hard to digest or so hard to go into the air.
이나야 땡아도 그 드네스는 지 소소게 니 동본예 드네산 땡데 라멘 따로 건 제가 있나 반삼지를 소소게 주든 주안로니 랑의 옌데 제바 빠쳐가지 문에 그 소소게 주라 근데 그 검시들 레와 있나 니 아주 그 미치게 깔랑 소마데 다랑 상으로 해가지 자료에서 그래서
But that if we are able to have this kind of thing, we need, in order to have that kind of mind, putting others first, that first we need to hear this kind of information, and then we need to contemplate on its information, and then we need to implement it, and we need to meditate upon it. And when we do this way, first listen and then later contemplate and then later implement. If one do in this way the procedure, then it definitely changes our way of thinking. It definitely affects our mind. And when we are able to transform our mind completely into that kind of stage, it is said that all the difficulties, whatever we are facing, it will going to become very easy solve.
단단하서 가르쳐서 대체는 알지 라고래 대체는 알지 차고래 대체는 안돼 되겠어 나다는데 깡깡 소만 나다만 더 깡깡기야 말았어.
So at this moment right now, that whatever we are facing difficulties, it is all related with the self, because if I do this and that brings me this way, if I does this and people will going to talk about me this way, in that way, that all these things related with the self.
제디가서 하생에 대해서만 코가지고 해보나 강한 소마치고 자와시소나 이 고양하다 고 망시소나 공가 소마시도 왔나니 이 강한 소마 대가나 상고 잘 모르겠어.
Likewise, when we have eliminated this root of the problem, then all the root of the problem, which is self, and when we able to eliminate this importantness of self or self, then all the problem is automatically going to be eliminated or fade up. It is just like when the root is pulled out, all the branches will going to collapse itself. Likewise, when the foundation is destroyed, and all the buildings will going to be collapse itself. It is natural.
다들 제디가서 그래서 지 소소 자체보다 소소 담보 제거야 봐 로소 때부터 되는 게 정말 현대가 있었어요.
When we share this kind of knowledge and informations, and may those peoples are laughing at us, those who concern self is so important and primary, and those people may laughing at this time by hearing this information. Okay, so we'll stop here, and time is over now. And then tomorrow, if you have any concern or questions you may bring, and then if we have enough time, we can discuss. Maybe or perhaps, and rather than from here, I'm just speaking whatever comes pop up in my mind, and it's maybe sometimes could be better if you raise some question, then we discuss. It can be more helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now we do this dedication of beneficial activities. First we read in Tibetan and then later we read in English. Sonam de thamje sipa ni thomne ni ben danam phamje ni chega na je walan tobai sebe zole doa doa shu jambal pawe jidra kemba dam kundo sambo de an de jinde teta kunje jesu daloji Gewan de da tamje rabdo mo Gewan de yeshe okun Sonam yeshe tsozo Sonam yeshe le chungwe Tamba gunye tabara shu Sanje kus nyebe chinlam dan Chenye mengyur dembe chinlam dan Genden meche dembe chinlam ki Jidra moa melam drabashu. By this beneficial activity, may I obtain omniscience, and having vanquished the harmful enemies, greed, anger, delusion, may I liberate all beings tossed about helplessly by the wave of birth, aging, illness, and death in the ocean of becoming. By conforming to the knowledge of courageous Manjushri, Jambalyam, and in the same way as Samindabhadra, Kundusambo, and following their example, I dedicate perfectly all this virtue. By this virtue, may all beings perfectly achieve the accumulation of merit, sonam, and wisdom, yeshe, and may they thereafter obtain the two holy bodies which result from these two accumulation. By the blessing of the Buddha Sangye, who obtained the three bodies, by the blessing of the immutable truth of the Dharmata, Cheni, by the blessing of the infallible aspiration of the Sangha, Gendin, may this prayer of dedication be accomplished just as it is. Thank you. Have a good night. See you, Tomato.
Thank you, Rinpoche.
Thank you, Rinpoche.